What if the moral compass you followed your entire life was suddenly gone? What if the cultural foundations that shaped your world, your sense of right and wrong, your identity, your purpose, vanished? What if the sky was still above you, the earth beneath, but the heavens were empty? This isn't just an existential question, it's a real possibility. And it's the question at the heart of one of the most explosive declarations in all of philosophy. God is dead. When Friedrich Nietzsche wrote those words in the late 19th century, he wasn't being edgy or provocative for its own sake. He was sounding an alarm. The foundations of Western morality, culture, and meaning were cracking, and we hadn't yet realized the full consequences. Today, more than a century later, we're still living in the aftershock. So what did Nietzsche really mean? What happens to morality and culture when we no longer believe in a divine order? And can we build something new in the ruins of a godless world? Welcome to The Unfolding Journey, a space where we explore life's biggest questions through the lens of philosophy, psychology, and culture. If you're someone who craves deep thought over quick takes and meaning over noise, you're in the right place. Let's unfold this journey together. 1. Understanding Nietzsche's God is dead. First, let's clear up a common misconception. Nietzsche didn't literally mean that a deity died in a cosmic sense. He wasn't speaking theologically. He was diagnosing a cultural and psychological shift. In The Gay Science and later in Thus Spoke Zarathustra, Nietzsche uses the phrase God is dead as a metaphor for the decline of religious belief and the collapse of the traditional values rooted in Christianity and Western theism. Here's how he puts it. God is dead. God remains dead. And we have killed him. It's a staggering line. But what does it mean? Nietzsche was observing that Western civilization was beginning to lose its belief in God, not just in churches, but in the very assumptions that underpinned law, morality, art, and meaning. Scientific rationalism, secular philosophy, and modern skepticism were eroding the authority of religious belief. But Nietzsche's statement wasn't triumphant. It was tragic. The death of God, in his view, meant the loss of absolute values. Without a divine source, moral truths no longer had a guaranteed foundation. The result? A looming cultural and existential vacuum. 2. Morality after God. Here lies Nietzsche's ethical dilemma. If God is dead, what becomes of morality? For centuries, Western ethics relied on divine command theory, morality rooted in the will or nature of God. The 10 Commandments, divine justice, heaven and hell. These were not just religious ideas, they shaped entire civilizations. Nietzsche believed that once belief in God collapsed, these moral systems couldn't hold up on their own. They were shadows of God, still functioning but hollow, like corpses kept upright by habit. He called this problem European nihilism, a creeping sense that life has no meaning, that values are arbitrary, that good and evil are constructs without divine authority. And this, Nietzsche feared, would lead to either despair or dangerous ideological substitutes. When you remove the divine anchor, morality can drift. What replaces it may be better or far worse. 3. The cultural crisis and the rise of nihilism. Nietzsche saw the cultural implications of this crisis unfolding already in his time. He predicted that as societies let go of traditional religious frameworks, they would struggle to replace them. The 20th century, rife with totalitarian regimes, ideological extremism, and moral confusion, would in many ways prove him right. Nihilism, for Nietzsche, was not just philosophical doubt, it was a cultural sickness. It produced the last man, comfortable, unambitious, unprincipled. A being who avoids risk, avoids pain, avoids greatness. In Nietzsche's vision, the last man is what humanity becomes when it gives up the search for higher meaning and settles for mediocrity. But Nietzsche wasn't content to diagnose. He sought a cure. 4. Nietzsche's response, the Übermensch and revaluation of values. Nietzsche didn't believe we should return to traditional religion. Instead, he proposed a radical alternative, the Übermensch, or Overman. This is not a superhero or master race figure, as some have misinterpreted. The Übermensch is the individual who creates new values in a godless world, who affirms life, even in its chaos and suffering, who lives authentically, without relying on inherited truths. This, Nietzsche believed, was the only way to overcome nihilism, not by going backward but forward, by becoming creators of meaning, rather than seekers of certainty. In this vision, morality is no longer dictated from above, but forged from within. Culture is no longer about obedience to divine law, but the cultivation of depth, creativity, and inner strength. 5. So what does this mean today? Let's fast forward to our world. Belief in God has declined sharply in much of the Western world. Secularism is rising. Institutions once anchored in religious authority are shifting or breaking. And yet, we still grapple with questions of meaning, morality, and identity. What grounds human rights without God? Why should we be good? What makes life worth living in a cosmos indifferent to our existence? These questions haunt our headlines, our classrooms, our art, and our psyches. Nietzsche's warning still echoes. If we don't find new foundations, we risk moral collapse, or worse, ideological tyranny. But his challenge is also empowering. In a post-theistic world, we are not left with nothing. We are left with the freedom and the responsibility to build anew, to reimagine morality, to shape culture, to live deliberately. 6. Final reflections. Is God dead or just evolving? Some thinkers argue Nietzsche was premature. That even in secular societies, spiritual longing persists. That religion, in new or evolved forms, continues to offer frameworks for meaning. Others believe that Nietzsche was right, but that his cure has yet to be fully realized. Whichever view you take, the deeper point remains. God is dead is not the end of the story, it's the beginning of a new one. A story that demands courage, creativity, and moral imagination. And the question is not just what kind of world we inherit, but what kind of world we choose to create. Thank you for exploring this philosophical journey with us. If this episode stirred something in you, if you're wrestling with these questions too, know that you're not alone. We're all walking this unfolding journey together. So don't forget to hit subscribe, drop a comment with your thoughts, and join us for more deep dives into the ideas that shape us. Until next time, stay curious and